Hello, everyone, and God bless you. Stop fighting for control and let the Holy Spirit guide you. Let the Spirit of the Lord guide you where you have to go because He knows exactly where you need to be right now at this moment and where you will be years from now as you allow Him to take control. I was reminded, I think yesterday, doesn't matter. But this is how God speaks to us at times. He might remind you of something. At times, it would be an episode, a TV episode. If you're familiar, and most of you perhaps are, with the show Air Crash Investigations that speaks about, the aircrafts crashing, the air crash, the air accidents. So I was reminded of an episode that was called Aeroflot, okay, a Russian airplane, where the captain wanted, because he was proud, he was a captain. It was a big privilege to be a captain in Russia. Like, very few people get that privilege because they gain access to things that are truly unavailable for most people, for luxuries, for payment, like most people wouldn't even dream of having a job of a pilot. It's a very privileged class, so to speak. So this episode was about Captain Kudrinsky, and he was so proud. He had his both kids with him. They were flying, I think, an Airbus above the ocean. Don't remember where they were going. I think it was an ocean, okay? So he wanted, to show off because he was so proud. He was so proud. We want our family members to be proud of us even when we are adult and our family members are our own kids. He wanted to show off in front of his kids, and so he brought them into the cockpit. Now, it did not end with that, but he even placed his own son. At first he placed his daughter, okay? So he told her, okay, try to turn the airplane. Now, the airplane was on autopilot. So when she turns, it wouldn't turn because it's locked on the autopilot. However, in order to emulate the behavior of the airplane during a turn, he changed the direction so that his daughter can feel as if she was actually steering the airplane. Now, the same thing when, the daughter stood up from the pilot seat, which is a big mistake. Like, why would you leave a kid in your pilot seat? Even when the autopilot is turned on, even when it is engaged. So, she stood up and he placed his son this time, okay, in his place. Now, a kid of 14 years old, you can imagine it. Like, he's very excited. Like, how many kids get to, be seated in the first, not even the first officer, it was the pilot's seat, okay? And on a live airplane, it wasn't even a simulation. It was an airplane that was active in the sky, which is a very big, dangerous, and concerning breach because it was flying and it carried people on board. First, it wasn't a simulator. Second, it was flying. Third, it had many people on board. So the thing is, he said, okay, try to turn the airplane. And he turned the knobs. Then after the turn was over, he turned the knob back in order to reestablish the original course or heading. And the boy figured out, like, you did that, okay? The airplane did not turn on its own. However, they got so busy with a side conversation. Him, the pilot, the dad, the father of this, of this kid, with the first officers, they were like conversing in a place that had to be uncontaminated. You see, the cockpit should not be contaminated, meaning that you should focus on the flight and leave any, sided chatter to the side most of the time because you have duties, you have responsibilities. However, they kind of left the boy in the seat and started conversing among each other. This is the problem here. Now, So when he was trying to turn the airplane, because it was so stiff, okay, since it was taken over by the autopilot, it wouldn't turn. However, there was a system within the software. As you keep pushing against the control, as you keep resisting, and this is the message here. So the kid was resisting against the control, just like we resist against the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit would establish a barrier protecting you from something, but you want to have it your own way. But as he kept pushing, and it was built into the software, he mistakenly disengaged the autopilot, and then the airplane started turning. It started turning. Now, the biggest problem is that everyone, because when he, shouted out that the aircraft is turning, why is it turning? So instead of the main pilot, the dad of this kid, telling him, okay, step outside, I have control, he kept him in the pilot seat while trying to figure out like why this had happened. They thought that it was something wrong with the airplane. The truth is, they were not aware that, because they got so much used to the fact that, okay, the autopilot is on, it should correct its own course, but you had done a big mistake. And it wasn't until, it started into a dive, and the bank angle became so dangerous. This is when it started diving in a tailspin, and this is when they tried so hard. They kept telling this kid to push on, to pull on the steering wheel, okay, the joystick, in order to pull back the airplane, to pitch it upwards. The thing is, this is the second mistake in its program. Okay, first of all, they couldn't figure out, okay, the pilot has been partially disengaged. Why? Because you were resisting it. And again, within the software, when you keep pushing against the steering wheel, it will partially disengage the controls. Not everything. The auto throttle kept going on normally, but the steering wheel, which is the bank, which is not the orientation, the bank angle of the airplane. Okay, not the rudder, the bank. I think the rudder also disengaged from the autopilot, I'm not sure. But finally, it broke out. It was no longer controlled by the autopilot due to the stiffness and the stubbornness and, the repetitive application of pressure against it. So God will protect you. But at a certain point, when you want to have it your own way, He will just lose it. Okay, so because you want to have control, you keep resisting and you don't want Him to take control of your life. Meanwhile, He knows how to fly your life better than you, just like the autopilot knows how to guide the airplane and fly it better than you. So it started into a dive, and it wasn't until almost too late when it had recovered. And by the way, this was something striking, that had they left, okay, because they were trying to pull upward, meanwhile, in order to recover from the stall, the aircraft needs to pitch downward. The nose needs to pitch downward so it can gain enough airspeed, and this is how it would recover automatically from the stall. It was built in the program. By the way, Airbus focuses on the software more than the pilot factor, unlike Boeing. This is something unique about Airbus. So because it knows that people are not infallible, they can make many mistakes, so they trust the computer more than the pilot. Okay, meanwhile, Boeing had more control for the pilot because the pilot is more aware of what he's doing. The computer can go wrong in many places, and it had happened also. Both scenarios or both cases have pros and cons. But the thing is, had the kid left the control, the aircraft itself would have recovered automatically without any interference, because it is programmed that once you leave the pitch, once you stop pulling backward because you're trying to pull upward but there's no speed, the bank angle, okay, actually not the angle of attack, so the aircraft needs to lower its nose in order to gain more airspeed so that it can recover, so the air can flow around the wings properly, so it could recover the lift which is the force that pulls the airplane upward and prevents it from plunging. When it plunges, it means that it had lost lift, which is called technically a stall. So, had he released his hand and left the airplane to do its own thing, which is already programmed, it would have recovered on its own. They would have lived to this day. So, twice he resisted. Twice he resisted. So, I believe some of you will be listening to this and it will speak to them. Stop standing in the way of God. Allow the Lord to do His own work in you. Allow the Spirit of God, and I'm preaching to myself, by the way. I'm not claiming that I have it all, together all the time. None of us is perfect, but stop resisting when God is trying to shut a door, for example, before you, and you're insisting that you want that. You want to be with that person in a relationship. You want that job. You almost want to, you are ready to die for that job. I've been there, by the way. Trust me, God has something much better. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His wisdom, is unsearchable and beyond understanding. Like He's as wise as the height between the heavens and the earth. Imagine that. Stop trying to play God and figure out your own life and what is good or not good for you. This slogan, have it your own way, which franchise, it doesn't work, okay? When you want to have it your own way. Or like Frank Sinatra, what he used to say, I did it my way. Well, your way doesn't even work. Your way doesn't even work. You want to do it God's way, because your way is not fulfilling. You don't know what is best for you. God knows better, and what God has for you is much bigger, much better than what you have for yourself, than your own plans for your life. So trust Him. Okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.